Sometimes when we take something we're highly internally motivated to do, a passion, and we receive external rewards for it, money, it actually kills our passion. Act 1 of our 3-act play is defining your sense of purpose, identity, and connections, and it must come first. Because only then can we move on to Act 2, which is trying to build our path to financial independence. There are many roads, many paths to financial independence. Today I want to tell you about 3 specifically, and I want to do so by telling you a story, a parable. This is the parable of the 3 brothers. There were once 3 very different brothers who set off on a journey of a lifetime by embarking on 3 separate paths. Because each of the brothers were different, their paths diverged quickly. Now, the eldest brother, he was known to be the most efficient. So it was unsurprising that he chose a path that was straight and free from time-wasting roadblocks. The middle brother was a strong hiker, but got distracted easily. There were many detours off his path. He had trouble sticking to the task at hand. And finally, the youngest brother was known to be a nonconformist. He neither moved forward too quickly nor got distracted too easily. He was just slow, deliberate. Now, the eldest brother had a concrete goal in mind because he had no fondness for his path. He never liked to hike. So he saw his end as a destination, a culmination of his struggles. In fact, his thirst to finish was so great that he often skipped meals and sleep to plod farther along. The eldest brother suffered greatly, but made a huge amount of headway in a short period of time. His physical fatigue and emotional weakness were buoyed by his dreams of all that he could accomplish once he achieved and reached his destination. If he could only get there faster, he would be free to travel to foreign lands, or better yet, climb the highest mountains. These dreams were the steam in his engine, the gas in his car. The eldest brother finally reached his destination, and he did indeed have many years to enjoy his freedom. The road had battered him both physically and emotionally, but it was a sacrifice that he was more than willing to make. Now, the middle brother also had no particular fondness for his path, but he lacked the strength and determination of the eldest brother. So instead, he decided to break his journey into smaller, more manageable increments. He found that when his energy ran low, he would take a flight of fancy out into the fields or up into the mountains. These trips off the prescribed path lengthened his journey and cost him in terms of time, but he would find his joy refreshed and his stamina rebuilt with each and every extracurricular foray. The middle brother reached the end of his path a number of years after the eldest, and he had less time to enjoy his freedom, but a good deal more energy. And finally, the youngest brother was more slow and deliberate than either of his other brothers. In fact, he loved to hike. So he didn't see his end as a destination. He saw his road as a joyful journey. So he took the time to notice the trees and the rivers, the change of seasons, and the sun beating down on his face. It was even more years after the eldest and the middle brother that the youngest brother reached his destination. And when he got there, he did something that neither of the other brothers could quite understand. He turned around and walked back the way he came. So I'm just curious, listening to the story, listening to this parable, how many of you out there feel like you're an eldest brother? Raise your hand if you feel like you're an eldest brother. Okay, about a third. How many of you feel like you're a middle brother? Maybe almost a third, maybe a little bit less. And how many of you guys think you're a youngest brother? Oh, we got a few youngest here. When we talk about the parable of 3 brothers, we could be talking about a lot of things, right? We could be talking about hobbies, we could be talking about relationships. In our case, we're going to be talking about your career and financial independence, but they say that how you do one thing is how you do everything. So let's talk about these archetypes. Let's talk about these three different paths. But before I do, I want to remind you, this is Act 2. Act 1 must come first. We first have to understand a little bit about our purpose, identity, and connections in order to then build an appropriate financial framework for ourselves. So what are the paths? The eldest brother is actually that traditional financial independence, retire early movement path that we're all familiar with. This is the idea that you front load the sacrifice, you grind it out, you take purpose, identity, and connections, you put them on the shelf and say, I'm not going to think about that right now. You accrue as much money as possible till you get to some net worth number, which you're going to call financial independence. We can call that 25 times your spending. We can call that a 4% safe withdrawal rate. I'm not going to get into all this. You've heard that before. But the point is you get to that number, then you retire, and then you can live a life of purpose, identity, and connections. Notably, this is the fastest path because you're going to retire earliest, but it is not the fastest path to financial independence, and I'll tell you why when we get to the middle and the youngest brother. This is a path we often see professionals take, right? Doctors, lawyers, accountants, but you may see a scattering of teachers and tradespeople do it too. There are a few problems with the path of the eldest brother. The first is you could be like my father. My father died early at the age of 40 unexpectedly, way before he retired. So you may die before you get the chance to enjoy your money. It's one of the risks of being an eldest brother. But there's also a more insidious risk, and it has to do with the seasons of our lives. Let's say you're in your 20s, and you're like, I'm going to grind it out and make as much money as possible and put everything else aside. You may meet the love of your life at that time, and you only get that kind of honeymoon period once. Or you may have kids. You might have babies or toddlers. Yes, you can put all that off, getting to know your wife and your children until after you've retired, but that season of their lives has passed, and it's never coming back. The path of the eldest brother really is that traditional, old-school FIRE movement model, but people nowadays are saying, I don't want to wait till tomorrow to live. People are saying, I want to live today as well as tomorrow, and yet I still want to pursue financial independence. If you're one of those, maybe the path of the middle or the youngest brother is for you. The path of the middle brother is the path of passive income or side hustles. The idea is we don't base financial independence on some net worth number. Instead, we look at passive income and side hustle income, and when that is great enough to reach our monthly needs, we call ourselves financially independent. Notably, this is actually a faster path to financial independence than that of the eldest brother. You may, within months or even a few years, be able to make enough passive or side hustle income to cover your costs. But I say it's a longer path than the eldest brother because if you're looking at retirement, that passive income, we all know there's no such thing as true passive income. It's going to require some maintenance, and your side hustles are going to require some maintenance. And if you're not putting money away for retirement, you may work into your 50s or 60s. This is a great path for entrepreneurs, people who want to work for themselves, people who want to sell digital products on Etsy, or real estate people, or people who want to do a blog or podcast. It's a great path because once you get your passive income and side hustle income going, you can concentrate on purpose, identity, and connections now and not wait till sometime when you're quote-unquote retired. There are a few risks to this path. Most of us know this. Not all of us can create passive income or side hustles that cover our monthly needs. We might just never be able to get there. The other risk is you may be chugging along with your passive income and Google changes an algorithm, or real estate drops in your area, or a better podcaster, blogger, or writer comes along and knocks off all your revenue, and you may find that you're going back to a 9-to-5 after all. I want to go to the youngest brother now because the youngest brother is different than either of the other brothers. The youngest brother wants to live a life of purpose, identity, connections now. They don't want to wait. They don't want to have to establish passive income. They want to live for today. So I call the path of the youngest brother the passion play. If the point of getting to financial independence is so you can do things that are meaningful for you, what if coming out of college or in your early 20s, you find something that has incredible meaning for you, something you would do even if you weren't being paid for it, but you happen to make enough to cover your monthly expenses? In a sense, you are financially independent immediately. This is the fastest path to financial independence because your money is working as a tool to do what you want it to do. On the other hand, it's the longest path because if you're not saving for retirement, if you're just covering your monthly costs, you're going to be working into your 70 or who knows how long. This is a great path for creatives, architects, artists. But again, there's some real risks to this path. Let's say that you are a painter and you paint 100 paintings every year but can only sell one. You may not be able to actually support yourself with your passion. There's also another risk which is a little more complicated and difficult to understand, and it comes from behavioral theory. I'm going to tell you the theory, and then I'm going to tell you a fun story that goes along with it. So the theory is, sometimes when we take something we're highly internally motivated to do, a passion, and we receive external rewards for it, money, it actually kills our passion. So here's the story. Let's pretend that we all live on this huge long block. And at the end of the block is this old curmudgeonly man whose joy in life is his plot of land and his flower bed. He spends all day taking care of them, but the moment he turns his back, the neighborhood kids extend their football game right onto his plot of land. Trample, 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 they ruin his little piece of heaven. Now the old man has begged, he's pleaded, he's done everything he can, but the minute he goes back in his house, the kids are back. So he understands a little bit about behavioral theory, about internal motivations and external rewards, and he decides to play a trick on the kids. One day he goes out to them and he says, you know what? I'm going to give you $10 every week. Go play on my lawn. I think you're actually fertilizing it. It's good for it. Now the kids are overjoyed. Not only do they get to go play football like they always wanted to, but now they have some money to buy candy. So the kids play football and their hearts are full, and their pockets are full of candy. Now the next week, the old man turns the screws. He comes back to the kids and he says, you know what, you're not doing nearly as good of a job as I thought you were. I'm still going to pay you, but now instead of 10, I'm going to give you $5 and we're going to check in again next week and then decide. Now the kids are miffed. On the other hand, they like playing football and they still want to buy candy. So the kids play football and their hearts are full, if not a little bit less. Their pockets are a little less full of candy. Finally, the last week, the old guy comes back and he says, you're doing a horrible job. The grass looks no better. You can play football all you want on my lawn, but I'm not paying you a cent. Now the kids huff and puff, they stamp their feet, they look him in the eye, they say, we're never playing on your lawn again no matter what you pay us. They turn around, they walk away, and they never come back. It's behavioral theory. Sometimes when we take something we're highly internally motivated to do, in this case playing football on the lawn, and we receive external motivations, money and candy, it kills our internal drive. So that's it. The path of the three brothers. The eldest brother, front-loading the sacrifice. The middle brother, passive income and side hustles. And the youngest brother, the passion play. Now this is an oversimplification, right? Because there are really many other paths. And in fact, we don't always stick to one path at any given time in our life. For instance, when I was 7 and my dad was 40, he was a doctor and he died suddenly. And I thought I could make the world better and everything would be okay if I just went into his profession and became a doctor like him. I was super passionate. I would have done it even if you would have never paid me a cent. I was a youngest brother. But then I started practicing medicine and I got burned out. And all of a sudden it was like, I need to make as much money as possible so I can get out of this profession and retire. I went from being a youngest to an eldest brother. But then I started doing medical side hustles to make more money. One of them was hospice. So I was taking some of the techniques of the middle brother. Act 1 was defining our purpose, identity, and connections. Act 2 is then using them to build a path to financial independence that uniquely works for us. But even if you understand your purpose, even if you understand your path to financial independence, there's still a question each of us is going to face every day, which is going to shake our confidence in our ability to deal with finances. And the question is, do we spend today on something that's important for us? Maybe it's a thing, maybe it's an experience. Or do we take that money, defer gratification, allow opportunity cost to do its thing, put it in the market or what have you, and keep it for tomorrow and retirement? Spend today versus save for tomorrow If we knew when we were going to die, we'd be able to answer that question, right? If you knew you were going to die in 10 years, or if you knew you were going to die in 20 or 30, you could then spend accordingly and make sure you used your money the way you wanted to do it. Unfortunately, we don't know that, so we need a proxy. And that proxy brings us to Act 3 of our 3-act play, asking what scares you most.